Hey everybody, it's Lon.TV, and it's time once again for your weekly wrap-up, and we're going to do something a little bit different this week. After our opening housekeeping, we're going to do a behind-the-scenes tour. It should be a fun diversion from our usual content here on the show, and without further ado, let's get to it. Now before we begin, I want to thank our newest super chatters here on the channel. I did a random live stream the other day, and 3 of you contributed during that. So I want to thank Robadam, Timothy Vreeland, and Third Moon for your generous contributions to the channel. I want to thank them and everyone who's been contributing to the channel on an ongoing basis, and all of you who watch on an ongoing basis too, because all of those things equal channel growth. Now we don't have an advertiser this week, but we do have a non-ad, an affiliate link for Freshly.com. And we often talk about meal kits here on the channel, at least during my live streams. And this came up during the last live stream because we were doing it very close to dinner time. And one of the things that I've been discovering over the course of the last 2 years making dinner for meal kits is that sometimes you don't have time to cook a meal, but you want something decent to eat. And that's what I have really grown to love about Freshly, because they send you pre-cooked meals and you just throw them in the microwave for 2 or 3 minutes and you're ready to go. And I've been surprised by how good this stuff is. It really doesn't taste like something that comes out of the microwave. It actually has a decent restaurant quality taste to it. They're very strict about their ingredients. I found that most of the things that they offer are pretty good. There are a few that I wasn't too crazy about, and generally when there are meals that aren't all that good, they tend to drop off the menu. And what's nice about it is that they do offer the same stuff week after week, so you know what you're getting, and there's some consistency to it. So there are new things that are added, but the stuff that tends to be popular, they keep on the menu, and if you like one thing, you can get that thing every week if you want. I also like that you can sort it by calorie count, because I'm always very mindful of my calories. I try to keep my calorie intake about 500 calories a meal, give or take, and you're able to kind of go through the list based on calories or ingredients and a whole bunch of other different ways as well. It's really good stuff, and it's worth giving it a shot if you want some good food and don't want to have to cook. It costs pretty much the same as those other meal kit plans do, so for 6 meals, it's about $60 delivered, which is on par with what you'll get from some of those other services, but without the labor that it takes to make the dinner. If you do sign up using my link here, I believe we both get $40 in credit. They stretch it out over 2 weeks. So give it a shot and let me know what you think down in the comments below. So let's take a look now at the week in review. On the Extras channel, we have an unboxing of the Piper Computer Kit, which is a cool Raspberry Pi-based STEM device where you can learn how to code as well as learn how to build some pretty simple circuits, all with the Raspberry Pi. Pretty cool stuff that we'll be exploring in more detail in the future. And we also unboxed the Lenovo ThinkVision M14 portable USB-C monitor. And of course, we reviewed that on the main channel along with a Lenovo battery and the brand new Amazon Cube, the Fire TV Cube to be exact, which is an improvement over the prior Cube. Has a lot more horsepower under the hood, but unfortunately there are some things that make it not work so well for us enthusiasts. And if you want to see more, you can check out the full review link down below in the master playlist. And now it's time for a Q&A from you, the viewers. And our only question this week comes from Barrett's Music. And this is a comment that I get quite often, that my set and my overall video look and feel has a real 90s feel to it. And there's a reason for this, because first of all, I learned how to do TV production in the 90s, so this is about the extent of my ability. But there's also a utilitarian reason behind the way things looking the way they do, which is when I first started the channel and started to see some growth, I did not have a lot of time to do editing and extra shooting. So what I decided to do way back then was to be able to shoot everything in real time. And the best way to describe this is that I'm kind of doing a live stream even when I'm recording video for uploading to YouTube later, because what I'm doing here is live switching video while we're recording, and this allows my edits to be very, very simple, which you'll see here in a few minutes when we get to the editing portion of the video. Now Jake is over here with my camera, and I thought I would give you a quick tour of the technical side of things here, and then we'll take a look at what we've got in back, and then I'll show you what everything looks like when it is edited. So I'm going to stand up here for a second and show you the cameras that we're using. The reason why things have that video look from the 90s is that we're using camcorders to record what's happening here. And I use camcorders for a couple of reasons. One is that they always work. They focus themselves automatically. The camera that I use that looks at me has a face detection on it, so I don't have to worry about the camera ever being out of focus. I just turn everything on, I sit down, and I start recording. I'm using these JVC cameras, which aren't the best out there, but they output 30 frames per second progressive through the HDMI. And one thing that I've noticed over the years doing what I do is that a lot of camcorders don't give you 30p out their HDMI port, and that was an issue when I started doing some of the video on my TriCaster. So that was why we went with those JVC cameras, and that's also why we use camcorders, just because it makes things very simple and quick and there's not a lot of setup time. The sacrifice, of course, is that you don't get that nice bokeh. You don't have the image quality that you would get out of a mirrorless camera or an SLR or something like that. But I found that I'd rather put more time into the content than futzing around with all the technical stuff. One day when the channel gets big enough, we can hire somebody to help with all of that. But for now, we're going to stick with trying to get things out in quantity and very frequently. And that's really the goal here of the channel, is just to push out as much content as humanly possible and really keep me focused on what people come here to watch, which is the stuff we're reviewing. Now, to do the live switching, you might think that I might use OBS or something that a lot of live streamers are using, but I'm actually using a piece of hardware called the TriCaster. I bought this back in 2014, right at the end of the year, and this is a device that is a PC, but it's highly specialized. It only does what we do with it, which is video production. And what I'll have Jake do here is just pan over to the screen that I look at while I'm recording. And you can see this is the TriCaster control panel. And what the TriCaster does is it does real-time compositing. So we have the look that you see on the wrap-up all the time. So we have a video here that it's playing. We have the input from the laptop that's on my desk, which runs the presentation that I do when I do the wrap-up. And then we have my camera here as well. And that is what goes on there. Now I've got two different control panels on the desk here. I've got this little one here, and if I hit this button, it will switch between views. So I'm going to let Jake kind of show this in one shot if he can do it. And when I hit this, it will change the camera view. Pretty simple stuff. So once you get this set up, it's treated like a regular camera input, and you can push a button and things switch. Now what's nice about this is that I don't have to edit B-roll in later. So when you see me handling a product and talking, 99% of the time, that's not B-roll. It's actually me handling the product as I'm talking about it. And the difference is that it cuts down editing time significantly because everything is pretty much edited when it gets into the edit component there. The TriCaster can take 4 inputs via HDMI. So that's 1 through 4 here, and one of those is a computer. Now it also allows you to bring in 4 network devices via a technology called NDI, which we've talked about in the past. And there's a couple different ways that you can bring things in via NDI. I have some boxes where you plug in an HDMI into the box, and then it outputs video just over the computer network here in the house, and then the TriCaster can pick it up. You can actually run NDI out of a Windows or Mac PC, and it will just take whatever is on its screen and just shoot it out like a video format. And it's very low latency, it's very convenient, and a lot of times when you're seeing me do some video here that's not on one of these 2 cameras, it's usually coming in IP via NDI right into the TriCaster. So I can have 8 different input sources coming in. I have a lot of compositing options that I can do with it. And really, if I didn't have the TriCaster, I don't think I could have built the channel into what it is today. OBS has come a long way since then, but I found in using OBS is that it sometimes works and then sometimes something happens and it breaks and then you have to wait for somebody to update things. The TriCaster just works, and sometimes it's important to have something that just works even if it costs a lot of money, which unfortunately the TriCaster does. We'll show you the edit so you can see exactly what all these clips look like when we're done. But what I do as I'm recording is I queue them up here in one of the TriCaster's media players. And what I do with this is just rename the files as I'm recording, and I also review the files every time I get through a take of something just to make sure I'm happy with it. And then when I'm happy, I go on to the next take and then go through the process and watch it and make sure it's okay and then add it to the queue. And then we just copy those files off the TriCaster into Final Cut Pro, and we're done. And that's usually the workflow. And the TriCaster is really a PC, so I've got this Logitech keyboard, all of 25 bucks, that does some of the things that my little keypad can't do. I've got a trackpad on here for moving the mouse around, and I can do a few more things like typing that I can't do on my little number pad. So I usually switch off with one or the other. A couple other things we have hooked up right now is my little MacBook, so I control this in addition to the TriCaster while I'm doing the wrap-up and a few other things where I want to bring in graphics in real time. And then I've got this really cheap Orion TV here, and this just outputs the program out so that I can see what is being recorded while I'm recording. It's often easier for me to have this below the camera because I'm not always looking at the monitor here on the side, and that was something I picked up at Walmart for like 90 bucks 5 or 6 years ago. Two other things to note is that when I'm recording up here, I know I'm recording because the record thing is lit up red and a timer is going. And then if I click on this thing right here for stream and encode, I can start live streaming. So when I have a desire to live stream, I just click a button and I'm live, and I could also record at the same time. It's really cool to have that ability just to stream out in HD to the world whenever I want. I can stream out to multiple places at the same time. So I've been experimenting doing some live streaming on Amazon through their shopping platform, and I can do that at the same time I'm streaming to one of my YouTube channels. So it's really just so cool to have all this stuff available without having to get out of my chair or my basement for that matter. Now for audio, what we do is we use the Sennheiser AVX wireless system. This is the body pack transmitter, and I've got a lavalier microphone attached to it. The mic that I'm using is the one that's clipped to me right now. This is a cardioid microphone, which means that it isolates sound pretty much on the top of it, and it gets rid of a lot of the other noises you might hear down here. So we do have some fan noise from the TriCaster. It's not all that loud, but it's certainly there. Occasionally things in the basement might kick on and run a fan or make some kind of noise, and this generally gets a lot of that noise out of the picture, which is often very helpful. Now this is the transmitter here, and the receiver clips onto the cameras. So I have one of these clipped onto the camera that faces me right now, and this is the other one. And so that you just turn on, and it links up with the body pack transmitter, and you're good to go. When we go to trade shows, we actually use those same receivers with the stick microphone that I have as well. So I'm able to do my on-the-street stuff with the very same technology I use here in the studio. I just like having the wireless because it's very freeing. I don't have to worry about snagging wires. If I forget to take it off, I can just get up and walk somewhere, and that's why I typically use the wireless stuff for that. AVX system is something I reviewed a little while back. You can see that review linked down below in the master playlist. Now there are a couple of things that I'm frustrated about down here. The first is my lighting. I've got these old LED lights. These are not ideal. I have a plan for making the lighting better, so my face will look a little more evenly lit and things will just look nicer. And part of the flat lighting here is the fact that this was about the extent of my experience with lighting. When I was in college back in the 90s, I did a lot of news shooting. We had a campus news channel where I learned a lot of this live production stuff from. And as you know, the news is very flat lit, very utilitarian, because those newscasts are watched once and then never again. And that kind of fed the process here that I applied for this, because there was a very similar time constraint in trying to get as much content out as humanly possible in the fastest way possible, and that's probably why this is looking the way it is. So what we're probably going to do at some point is get something overhead here and have a light that will evenly light the desk, keep that light in front focused on me, and then we'll probably put in a little key light or something, or whatever they call it, behind me here to kind of get things backlit a little better. And then we'll start working on the background look, because I would like to get a little bit more bokeh in the shot here, and that might involve just moving the camera positions around and that kind of thing. So you'll see some subtle changes to the look, but I think the look of this and the jarring nature of the content to some people when they first see it actually helps the channel more than hurts it. And I think it's really either you love it or you don't love it kind of thing. And I'm happy with that because it is getting people thinking about what they're watching. And I think this channel looks a lot different than other tech channels as a result. But I am always thinking about the fact that you don't want to look too dated. So we're going to try to find a way to make it look just slightly dated while still enjoying all of this stuff from my past. So that said, why don't we take a little tour of what I have on the shelf here, and then we'll jump over to editing. So we're going to start over here in this corner. And I can't touch anything because it will all crash down. None of this stuff is actually attached. So we're going to start over here in the upper right-hand quadrant. We've got a Game Boy Advance. I have a zip disk. Some of you might remember those, 100 megabytes a piece. I was using those about 20 years ago when I was in college because that was the most storage you could get for the least amount of money. I used to shuffle them back and forth to different things around campus. We have a pack of Return of the Jedi cards that I bought a little while back. That was a fun collector's thing that I used to do as a kid. This is a recent addition. When they were closing out Think Geek, I bought this for like next to nothing, a little Star Trek Starship Enterprise. I was a big fan of the Star Trek The Next Generation as a kid, so I thought I'd put one of those up there and acknowledge that love of Star Trek. The next quadrant here, we have an Apple Newton. This is the Message Pad 120, and one of these days I'm going to do a retro review of the Newton because it really is ahead of its time. This is one of the first personal digital assistants. It has handwriting recognition. I believe this was the third iteration of the Newton, so it was a little more advanced than the original. But I ended up buying a bunch of them when they were really cheap on eBay just to have them. So we'll maybe talk a little bit about that in a future video if you're interested. I really enjoyed the Newton. I used it all throughout college to organize things, and at the time that was it if you wanted a really advanced personal digital assistant. The Palm Pilot was also out there, but I was a Newton guy. Next to that is a laser tag sensor, and when I was a kid, laser tag was just this revolutionary toy. You could play Army with your friends, and you could actually have a determining factor as to when someone was hit or not. And we used to have a blast playing with this. Laser tag at night was awesome because the lights would dance around, and that's all you would see running around outside. Loved laser tag, still do. I have a working set that I also bought on eBay recently, or 2 years ago now, and I've got a video on that you can see as well. Next quadrant, this is one of my latest additions here. Again, from a Think Geek closeout, we have my Captain Picard bust. Next to that is the Compaq iPac. This was one of the early pocket PCs that Microsoft and a few manufacturers put together. This one was really neat because it had this expansion docking mechanism to it, so you could bring in expansion cards and some other stuff. And I really liked this quite a bit and used it a lot. It kind of replaced my Newton, actually. Next to that is the Tomitronic 3D. This is a little LED toy, but it was 3D because you had two different images coming in, and it was lit by this diffusion panel here at the top. Go on YouTube and look this thing up. It was actually a fun game that was better than some of the other LED toys at the time. Below that, we've got one of the earlier iPods. This is not the click wheel one. It had the capacitive wheel. I bought that for my wife a while back, and it just seems to work well here on the shelf. And my philosophy with all this stuff is that I could have thrown it out, but it's better to have it as part of the set, right? Next to that is a Blockbuster box, and I get a lot of people commenting on that because they think I stole it from Blockbuster, but actually I didn't. There was a time, towards the end, that Blockbuster got really creative with things, and if you just kept the game, you could basically pay whatever they thought it was worth. So this game, Black, was a shoot 'em up on the Xbox, and I got it for, I think, 20 bucks or something just by not returning it. So that was a pretty good deal, I thought. And now I have a Blockbuster box, which is a collector's item to some degree. I don't know if it's worth anything, but I think it's pretty cool. Down below is the Atari 2600 area. So this is an original Atari 2600 controller. This was from my Atari that I played with as a kid. It probably still works. These are all of my original Atari games. I probably have more somewhere else here in the house, but this is Combat that came with it, Space Invaders, of course, and a bunch of other games that I got over the years. My two favorites are Star Wars here, which is the Empire Strikes Back game from Hasbro, I believe. That was a really fun game. And then I loved Pitfall, but I think Laser Blast was another one of my favorites from back then. This is just filling up space here. This is just the collection of DVDs and Xbox and GameCube title cases, just to have something to fill up that space, nothing too nostalgic there. We have my Star Wars Laserdisc collection here. This is the widescreen of the special edition. I have another one of these with the original movies as well. And I think I bought this one online, but the original edition special set that I have, I got at the Suncoast store at my mall, and they had this thing where you'd have a scratch-off coupon around the holidays, and I got it for like 40% off, which was crazy. They weren't anticipating somebody coming in and buying the most expensive thing in the store, which is what I did that day. Below that, we just have some floppy disks. This is an Apple II game. These disks all work. I tested them not all that long ago. So we got that. Operation Wolf for the PC, 3.5-inch floppies there. This is my ColecoVision wall. So we have a ColecoVision controller. The Coleco was one of my favorite consoles from the 80s. And then we have some of the games here like Zaxxon and Q*bert and Carnival and Bump and Jump, which was one of my favorites on the Coleco. Above that, we have my Timex Sinclair 1000. Those of you in Great Britain might know this by another name. I believe this was the ZX, I think it was the ZX Spectrum or something like that. And this was a really, actually this was my first computer. My father bought this when I was in kindergarten, when I was just a little bit younger than my daughter. And it was something that you had to type everything in with that membrane keyboard. It took forever. I have a memory expansion module for it as well. And then we have some of the cassettes that you would run with it. So you'd hook up your cassette player to it and load in the software that way. All this stuff, I believe, probably still works. Above that, we have my Nintendo games here. So I've got a couple of NES cartridges, just because you have to have those on a retro wall. I've got this old Hi-8 camcorder. This thing was a really cool camcorder back in its day. It recorded in stereo. So that's just there to look good. Above that, we have the Super Turrican box that came with my analog Super NT console. So this is a newer thing. And then we have some of my Game Boy games here as well. And next to that, we've got a Zelda cartridge, a gold one. I believe that one's my wife's cartridge. She was really into Zelda when she was a kid. I didn't realize she was into Nintendo until we were dating for about 2 years. It was kind of funny, and she had a bunch of cool stuff at home. This is an Amiibo I bought recently. This is one of my prized possessions up here. This is my original Sega Genesis, and this is like one of the original Sega Genesis consoles. I bought this in August of 1989 at my Toys R Us. It still works. It just looks better up here than it does in operation. We got a couple other things to show you now too. If Jake, hopefully his hand is still surviving here. We've got him the lightweight camcorder, so he should be okay. Here's my trophy from YouTube for passing 100,000 subscribers. I don't think we'll be getting another one for a while. I have to hit 1 million to get there. I've got a VHS tape and I think one of the plug-and-play paddle consoles that At Games or one of the other companies put out. This is a Raspberry Pi case that looks like a Sega Genesis. I thought that was pretty cool. Down here, we've got a couple of Atari computer cartridges, some Sega Genesis cartridges. We've got my 3-button controller below that from that original Sega Genesis, another Genesis cartridge there, NES controller, and an Apple II controller. How about that? That, I think, still works. Those things tended to get a little floaty after a while. And then this thing down here is kind of cool. This is my modem that I ran my BBS off of back in 1993. And it was a 14.4 modem. It had a really awesome LCD display up here that would tell you what was going on. And I remember the firmware updates for this modem required you to pop out the chip and put in a new chip. I had to do 1 or 2 of those back in the day. Got a couple of books here that I bought, one on Coleco and another one just on some random energy topic there. And then this big thing is something we looked at not too long ago. I picked it up during the Prime sale. This is a green screen. And what I can do with this, if I can move it out here a little bit, is whenever I want to have a green screen behind me, I can just pull this thing up, and I've got a green screen. This is the Elgato one, I believe, and it's really convenient to have a green screen right here when I need it. So we have that there. And we got one last thing to look at. And maybe what we'll do is give Jake a little break with his hands, and we'll move him over to the other side here. All right, we got 3 more things to look at here. We have a Mac SE30. This was working, but now the display stopped working, so we're going to have somebody look at this guy. But this was a real hot rod back in its day, a very expensive black and white Mac when it first came out. It had a very fast 6830 processor inside. Even though it looked like your Mac SE, it was much more capable. I have, which I've never installed, a card to allow you to hook up a monitor and get color out of this too. It might be a fun project for some point in the future, maybe. We have a mouse here from Kensington. And some of you might remember that Kensington has done a few sponsored videos here on the channel, and I did some work for them on their Amazon page. And they've been around for a long time, and this is one of the mice that they created for the Mac that also worked with my Apple IIgs. And this is one of my real prized possessions here. I bought this back in, I think, 1988 or 89. And this is, or was, my main driver computer when I was a teenager. And I used to get on all the local bulletin board systems with this. So this is really like the first computer that I took online. It still works. However, if you go and look at the video I did about this computer, you'll see that a portion of its power supply blew up on me and started smoking. It was not a necessary part of that power supply, so it still does work with the power supply that it has inside. But I recently acquired a lot of old Apple II stuff, and one of the things in there was a brand new power supply for the 2GS. So we are going to get this thing up and running again sometime in the near future. I really souped it up. It's got an accelerator card. It's got a lot of memory. We have the ability to use flash cards as a hard drive in it. So it's really a very capable old computer, and it's a lot of fun to just fire it up and get it working again. And the last thing here in the set is my cabinet where I store all of my doodads and adapters and all sorts of stuff. You would not believe how many different little doodads and adapters you need to run this channel. So I've got random scalers, docking stations, a lot of HDMI cables. And then on the other side of this, I have my collection of my USB-C adapters. I have my capture cards here. Just about everything you can imagine is in here. And what happens is that you start working on a video and realize you don't have everything you need to finish that video. So I go to Amazon, I buy it, and then it goes in there. And I'm trying to get more disciplined about putting things back where they belong, because I spend a lot of time down here looking for stuff that should be in that drawer and is probably sitting on the floor somewhere from a prior project. So part of my resolution for the rest of this year and into next year is to get this place better organized. I was telling Jake before I started that today that I typically just put stuff down and move on to the next project, and I really need to start spending time to just get things organized and cleaned up before I go on to the next thing, because I do waste a lot of time looking through piles of wires and other things to get to where we are. We did straighten up this general area for this video, but we did make a mess somewhere else in doing so. So we're going to probably have a big cleanup day where we just get things organized and straightened up. Now, when I finally sit down here at the table to record a review, we've done a lot of work already to get things ready for that recording session. So every product that we look at here, we actually use, of course, because we have to be able to communicate to you what our impressions of the devices are. And what we do in the course of that prep work is prepare a little document. I call this the cheat sheet, and Jake will close in on it a little bit here so you can see what this looks like. So this is the one that I used for the Fire TV Cube that we just put together. And what I put on here are just notes of things that I want to make sure I don't forget to cover when I shoot the video. So we have all the different features and the things that I want to talk about. I have a list of things that I want to demonstrate or talk about in the course of the review. And generally what I do is just kind of check things off as I am working on them. We also, of course, have benchmarks that you see on screen. Well, we also put them on the cheat sheet so I can make sure my numbers are correct when I talk about those things as well. And everything we do here on the channel has a cheat sheet attached to it so that we can make sure that we're delivering you the information that you are looking for. So we record the review, and then we take the files off the TriCaster and put them into Final Cut Pro. And I've got an example of it running here on my MacBook. And before I show you the edit, I do want to show you what we use for drives. We love these little solid state drives here. We've got a bunch of them. This is our SanDisk one that came in free of charge from SanDisk a while back, and you can see it gets a lot of use because every video we edit is edited on one of these external drives. And what's neat about the TriCaster is that when it is done recording, the files do not require any transcoding in Final Cut Pro. When I pull them in, they are already fully editable. I don't have to wait for things to transcode. There's no processing. The files are just ready to go. So let's take a look here at my Final Cut Pro screen, and we can get a look as to what a completed project looks like. Now, if you've watched any other channel do its behind-the-scenes editing video, you'll see there's a lot of different video clips and a lot of different things going on. I have pretty much a single timeline here because as I scrub through, you can see the switching is done at the time we're doing the recording, so I don't have to shoot all of this B-roll separately. And I think it flows a lot better because I'm actually doing with the product what I say I am doing in the video, because that's exactly what's happening. I hit the button to switch the camera over and we're good to go. So generally I just shoot a few pieces together here, as you can see, and then I just drag the clips in. So you can see this was clip 41. I came to the end of something there and then pick up the next one in 42. One thing I'm very mindful of is making sure that if we start off on me, that the prior clip has something else, because I really don't like to have jump cuts on the channel. I like to have a clean cut from one thing to the next here, as you can see right there. Then when we're done, we drop in the end credit roll here, and then we just export it and upload it to YouTube, and that's pretty much it. This video has a little bit of an exception to it because there is some B-roll shots that we worked in. These are generally shot with my iPhone, now my new iPhone Pro 11 here with the 3 camera system. but usually B-roll like this is very few and far between, and it's always just a very simple clip that we drop into the timeline like this. So a very simplistic workflow, which is why things look the way they do. We're going to slowly start working on improving the overall look here as the new year begins, but generally it's going to be hard to get away from this because of the efficiency here. And me and Jake here working part-time can usually crank out 4 or 5 videos a week because of this efficiency. So it's something I'm very keen on maintaining because until I have an army of people helping me out, this is about what the economics of the current situation can afford. So hopefully this was a fun look at behind the scenes here on the channel. If I missed anything, let me know. We'll come back and do some follow-ups. I'm sure we'll get a lot more questions about different components that we talked about. This might be a fun thing to come back to in the weeks ahead. And then as we start decking this place out a little bit better, I will, of course, share with you all the different things that I am doing. So our pick of the week this week is something totally unrelated to our behind the scenes tour, but something I've been referring to as I've been playing around with some stuff lately. And that is something that my friends at My Life in Gaming put together a little while back about cartridge save file preservation. Because when we're looking at all these old game cartridges back here, the ones that have batteries like that Zelda cartridge will eventually lose their data. And you might have spent a lot of time playing one of those old games. This great video shows you how to pull that data off your existing cartridges and in some cases even write them back. They even talk about portability between emulators and even going from original hardware to an emulator and back again. Really cool stuff. I had the opportunity to meet the My Life in Gaming crew at Retro World Expo here in Hartford about 2 weeks ago. Great guys, really enjoyed learning about their processes and workflow as well. So you can check out this really helpful video at the link that you can see on screen. So this week, I'm not sure what I'm going to do just yet, just because I am recording this on Friday, and generally this video comes out on Monday. But we will be looking at those Blink cameras finally. I've been saving this video up for the right place, but I think it's definitely time that it gets released. It's been done for a while now, so it's been actually really fun to be ahead of schedule on my content, which is why this one keeps getting pushed back. But I think Wednesday will probably be the date you see this one hit the channel. And then, of course, what else will come is a mystery, but you will see it when it gets here. And I've got plenty of stuff piling up here that I do want to get to. So we'll see what kind of mood I'm in on Monday, and we'll go from there. Now, if you want to help support the channel, you can. You can go to Lon.TV/support and make a monthly or a one-time contribution. Those contributions, by the way, go to Jake, who's been helping me out here on the channel. So I want to thank you all for your continued support. We also have YouTube membership support here on the channel, so you can join the channel through YouTube or the other methods that you'll find at my other link. The choice is yours. We also have our ongoing relationship with Plex, and if you sign up for a free Plex account, no credit card required, we get a little commission. We get a slightly larger commission if you sign up for a Plex Pass or gift it to somebody else. And Plex is going to get a lot more interesting on the free tier shortly because they keep adding studio partners for their upcoming free video service that they're going to be offering. So they're going to have ad-supported movies and TV shows from major studios right alongside the media that you're storing on your Plex server. So that's coming up, so stay tuned for that. We'll have a full review of it when it does get released. We also have other channels you can follow me on, including my Extras channel at Lon.TV/extras. We have my podcast at Lon.TV/podcast, which is an audio version of this show. We have the Snippets channel where I pull out components of this show and upload them on their own. And then we have the live stream archive where you can see last week's live stream and a bunch of other ones that I've done, all in a handy-dandy playlist that goes on for hours on end. If you like what I do and want to get notified whenever I upload or do whatever, you can click on the notifications bell and you will get that notification, hopefully. If you don't, let me know. We'll let YouTube know they're not working again. We also have my email list, which is very infrequent. We do this from time to time when we've got something special going on the channel. We have the Facebook page at Lon.TV/Facebook. We have the Facebook group, which is now over 750 people strong. It's a great source of information for me and a great source of content ideas for the channel. And it's great to connect up with other fans of the show. So it's fun to watch you interacting with each other and with me. It's just a great time. So if you're on Facebook, check that out. And then, of course, we've got the store at Lon.TV/store, where I sell all of the things that I reviewed here on the channel that I purchased. And we have a mixed reality headset up right now and a couple of other things. So if you're looking for a good deal on something, check it out and you can get notified whenever we have a new item in the store by signing up for my store alert email. And I send these out every time I add something to the store or change pricing, so be on the lookout for that. So that is going to do it for this week's weekly wrap-up. I hope you enjoyed this little diversion from our usually scheduled content. I do have some news items already lined up for next week, which we will talk about on next Monday's wrap-up, but I've been meaning to get to this behind-the-scenes tour for a while, and I had to shoot this video a couple of days early, so it was a good opportunity to finally get this thing done that I've wanted to do for a while. Let me know what you thought down in the comments below. Please keep those questions, comments, and criticisms coming. They are very helpful in guiding me to making content that best fits what you're looking for. And until next time, this is Lon.TV. Thanks for watching.
This channel is brought to you by the Lon.TV supporters, including gold-level supporters, the Four Guys with Quarters podcast, Chris Allegretta, Tom Albrecht, Mike Talbert, Brian Parker, and Kalyan Kumar. If you want to help the channel, you can by contributing as little as $1 a month. Head over to Lon.TV/support to learn more. And don't forget to subscribe. Visit Lon.TV/s.